Hi, welcome to the Small Shed. This week I'm making a toy box or a blanket box out of a pair of old doors. See you in a minute. Had somebody come into the shed with some bifold doors that he wanted to know if we were interested in. So what we tend to do with these things is say yes first and then worry about it afterwards. He's got 4 pairs. I've put 3 of them up on top of the officey area just to get them out of the way at the moment. They're still in their wrappers. And the immediate thought was the best thing we could do is probably cut them down into bits, because there'll just be some timber, off the sides, and we'll get some raw timber out of them, if you like. But then when I started to look, it's clearly made out of 2 or 3 bits stuck together, so it's probably not going to get a lot of decent wood out of it. Then I had a thought that if we took a pair of these doors, we could make like a toy box with a front, a back, an end, the other end, a top and a bottom. Right, well, I've lived with these things for a week or 2, playing with them. Decided I'm going to do something with it today. I was trying to think whether I could get more out of the doors by just putting a plain end on and using that for a front and back, and that way you'd get more toy boxes. But I think it's one of these things that, as ever, I'm trying to overthink it. Really, the first thing to do is to make one and sell it. There's no point in making 8 toy boxes instead of 4 if you can't sell them. So rather than mess around, I'm going to just hit them and make them, if you like, or make one. I can always do the rest as flat packs. The only thing I've got to sort out is that the ends obviously will have to be narrower than just that panel size, because the lid, if it's going to be made out of one of those, has to be that width. So a little bit of thinking as to how that's going to work with joints and things, but I'm going to make a front, a back, a side, and then a side, a top and a bottom. And the only thing that may need a bit of alteration is the bottom, where it would be best just to have a plain piece of ply, but I'll just put it on top of this piece inside. So that's the job for the day. I'm going to get the track saw out, rip these down into sensible sized pieces, and then I can actually deal with them a bit better. Right, well, it's been a frustrating morning, but I think we've got there in the end. Nothing has gone to plan, but I think sometimes you just have to adapt. I cut an end off, which was fine, and I then cut off a piece for a front, and the intention was that I would cut down these side pieces along that line to attach them so that you would only see a joint on the ends of the front. And that was fine until I cut the other end of this front piece and found that there was a damn great joint in it, which is pretty horrible looking, and which I wouldn't really want showing on the end like that. So that meant I've had to have a bit of a rethink, and I decided that I couldn't, because this end piece had also got the same problem with it, or because I didn't want that showing on the front on the reasonably nice pieces, if you like. so good, I thought, well, okay, I'll turn these round 90 degrees. And the problem is then that this panel is not square. But the idea was that if I did that, I could then glue that together like that, and that would give me a nice front, which will look quite good, I think. Fine. But of course that meant these were wider than, because it's not square, that is wider than it is tall. So I've had to cut these down lengthways as well. So the upshot is that I've got an end and I've got a front piece. Now of course, because of that trouble with the joint, it meant I couldn't use one of these for a top piece, but I thought I could get over that by putting some of that lath on and covering the joint up. But that in itself will give me the basics of the box, and I've got the back the same. So that's so far so good. I can get it to stay up. But then, just to be awkward, when I cut the next one of these doors down, I found that actually both ends of that are okay. So that has given me a lid for this box. This is where it's all going to go horribly wrong. There we go. So that will hinge and provide me with a lid. And in theory, I'll turn that round so we haven't got the hinges holes there. But that gives us effectively a blanket box stroke toy box or whatever. So we will now get the pocket holes out. Now it's in a handleable size. I can take that back to the shed and have a play with it at home. And now for the toy box, I've got all the bits cut out of 2 doors. I've got enough for a top, a bottom, 2 ends, 2 front, a front and a back. And I thought that's the way I would be doing it, but the more I think about it, that's probably not what I want. For a couple of reasons. Firstly, there's an awful lot of weight in that bottom, which I don't think I need. And in particular, when you open this thing up, you're going to end up with a bottom that's got all these panelling bits in it. And I thought, well, I could put ply over the top of that, but it just seems to defeat the whole object. So I think I'm going to work on the assumption that I can do without that, and we will sacrifice, if you like, one of the 6 pieces that we get out of a pair of doors, and that will give me at least a chance to have some spares if I need them. I've set the jig up, set it for 1.5 inch timber, mark the spindle of the actual drill for 1.5 inch. I had got a collar, but I think I've lost that at some point. But we just drill the holes then. Right, that's gone together quite strongly. I'm amazed how solid that is now. I was thinking that the base was going to have to be used to stiffen this thing up to make it square, but in fact the actual screws themselves are solid enough, and it probably needs a no, that's pretty square, so that's good. Happy with that. There is a little bit of work to do to put trim in the ends here of the panels because it was so tight, but I cut those out and kept them. So I've got the pieces that will go in there. That's gone together quite nicely, and then All we need to do then is house out the top for some hinges. And we've got ourselves a box. It's going together quite nicely anyway, I'm happy with that. Now I've just got the panel that was left over and I'm painting half of it with an emulsion colour so that we can do a note when we're putting these out for sale that they can be either finished in pine or with a paint finish, because if it's a children's toy box it might be better to actually have it painted to colour to match a room or something like that. So we're giving an option of that. Might also make them a bit more saleable in a modern house. You might not want antique pine, so I think that'll just do like a demonstration piece, and we can do the sales pitch on that basis. Right, so that's another project completed. We've got the toy box finished. I've just put a bit of the leather I got from the scrap store as a sort of a restraint to stop the lid from going back too far. I might just possibly, when we come to do any, if we get orders for them, put a routed out finger groove in the bottom of the front, but I'm not sure about that. But other than that, now it's done. I'll wait until we see if anybody wants them before we actually start putting finish on. I've done the panel that you saw me doing a minute ago with the colours or the plain, so that they can choose which sort of finish they want. And we could always laser etch, you know, children's stuff on the front if need be. You know, dinosaurs, dolls, whatever. So I hope the video is of interest. Look forward to seeing you next time when we'll be doing something different in the shed. I'll see you then. Bye.